Hi, Sandeep. It's such a pleasure to meet you. You are a senior leader with 24 years of hands-on experience in the IT technology industry. You are leading RealPage right from the front. And I think from the time you got involved with RealPage, it has been certified as a great place to work. I believe in 3 years in a row, we have known RealPage being the best employer in the IT space. And of course, in the past, you have had senior positions with NatWest and prior to that with IBM. So it's a pleasure to have you today here with us. With that, I would first and foremost just like to understand from you that what was your value proposition for joining RealPage?
First of all, thank you, Sapna, for this conversation. I truly appreciate we having this conversation on a pretty pertinent subject. To your question, the value proposition was one. RealPage, if you know, is a $1 billion plus in revenue technology company based out of Dallas, and I joined them November 2018, which is 3.5 years back. Fast-paced company, growing at a rapid pace. We've done 60 plus acquisitions. And after I joined in December 2020, we got acquired by a private equity firm for about $10.6 billion. So the first value proposition was the scale and the growth of the organization. The second was the space. We are in a property management space, market leaders, and I think the space is very exciting. In some sense, it is recession proof. Rather, we've had our strongest quarters and months when the pandemic hit us. And the third was people. I felt warmth when I was having my discussion, and there's a story behind that as well. When I got interviewed, they asked me to come to the US, and I spent 5 days, and I keep joking about it, saying, I've had 28 rounds of interviews before they kind of hired me, but it was not an interview, but it was more of discussion in terms of what's the lay of the land and what's the expectations, and I thought that was the decision maker for me to look at RealPage. And I think the expectations were clear, the outcomes were drawn, so the execution was razor sharp in that sense. And here I am, 3.5 years, looking back at the journey. It's very fulfilling.
Fantastic.
Exciting times.
Wonderful. In fact, that then leads me directly to my next question, which I'm so eager to ask and understand. That, as I understand, RealPage is one of the top employers in India. It has been featured in Forbes India 2 years in a row as India's top 15 best employers. And most importantly, I think it has also, been rated as top 15 company for health and well-being. I also read a little bit about yourself and understand that, you have pursued a people and strategic leadership program at Wharton. You're pursuing advanced management from Harvard. What is the mantra about handling people, making sure they still have a work-life balance, retaining people? Because most organizations are struggling with this aspect. There is so much attrition, technology is taking over, the relevance of people is receding and it's becoming harder and harder as competition is growing to basically retain people and in fact make it a great place to work for people is something I would like you to please share with us, your secret mantras.
Yeah, it's a long list, but I'll try and simplify that a bit, Sapna. Firstly, I think there's no rocket science. Ultimately, you're dealing with people, and people get encouraged, they engage if you have trust in the organization. So for me, the fundamental to making a place great place to work is build that trust. And for me, trust comes from two things. One is that strong belief, the value system which you have inherited right from your family to the organization, and the other is transparency. Transparency comes when you walk the talk. Uh, I think when I joined in, I had committed that we will transform the organization in about 3 years. We were 900 people. We are 1,700 people today. The trust with the stakeholders is and the leaderships across the globe has catapulted us to where we are. In terms of people, there are several initiatives I can talk about, but and if you read the article in Forbes over the last 2 years, I think the first one was called RealPage lays premium on trust. And there are small things we do. I have not had my budgets increase per employee on engagement. It's the same budget which we've used since the last 3 years. What has changed is the way we engage people and motivate them. The 3 years journey is, the first year was called Be Awesome Every Day because I wanted everybody to live the day for its moment. And we had several initiatives to actually target towards that. Like we had, thank God, it's Thursday in the first year where every Thursday of the month we had, one was innovation, second was health and well-being, third was leadership in people, fourth was learning. So it was all about how do we nurture people to enjoy their day. Next year was called Go Beyond. We wanted the 10%, 15%, 20% kind of growth. The third year was all about disruption. Give me that 5x, 10x. Break the barriers in terms of what we do. And this year it's called Scaling the Summit.
Wow.
And if you look at Mount Everest, which is probably the summit, it's got 4 base camps. For me, the last 3.5 years journey is those 4 base camps. As we're not scaled the summit is yet. I think it's a long way out, but I think it is important that what we do. Simple things as leaders for me was we had a media party. The theme was Texas. So we started something called the Sheriff Awards. That day, I think I wrote about 100 odd letters, and it was not thank you for doing this. I know probably 600, 700 people by name. So I wrote letters to each one of them. Last year, I actually went and delivered those letters to their homes because we were all locked out. So it's all about these simple things which we do, which enables the trust within the organization. Now to your second part of the question, Sapna, around health, well-being. My philosophy has been that given that post the pandemic, we are all living in a world which is in some sense merged. Work and home are merged. And if you try to break that, I think you'll have an imbalance. Let it be the way it is. I think you need to give time to your family. You need to give time to yourself. You need to give time to the work. If you try and box it up, you will always struggle, saying that I'm not doing justice to one. Do what you love what you do, will enable you to having a perfect balance. Now to the third part of your question, Sapna, on me doing what, Harvard or any other program. So my life's motto is simple. What got you here will not get you there. If you're not continuously innovating yourself or reigniting yourself or identifying yourself on what you want to do next, because if you look at the climb to the Everest, the first base camp to the second base camp is not going to is very different from second to the third. The breathing becomes difficult. The equipment is heavy. Somebody needs to hold your rope. There are different skills, and for me, that is what will enable people also to have that clarity, to have that capability, and have that motivation to get there. So for me, it's all about continuous learning, which keeps you excited. I come to work first thing in the morning. I'm doing Monday, Friday. Home is Bangalore, office is Hyderabad, but I've enjoyed every moment of it since the last 3.5 years. It feels like the first day at work.
Wow. Wonderful. Very insightful. I think I could draw a parallel to, I read this book just recently about Indra Nooyi, and she's written about her life in full. I can see, some of the reflections of her life and the way she handled people, that personal touch reflected in what you just shared with us. I think it's it's very path breaking in terms of your thought process, and then to really make it real and implement it in the organization with such care, I think is surely a differentiator. And as you said, trust and work-life balance. Awesome. Great. I'll probably then move on to yet another question that I would like to understand from you. So 24 years of hands-on experience in IT, running global delivery operations, global capability centers, actively involved with the industry as chair, Global Capability Center Council, Telangana and AP, member of the NASSCOM National GCC Council. I guess you know where I'm heading now. It's towards the global shared services, global capability centers. My question to you here is that with your experience, what do you think is the way forward? Is it the in-house shared services centers being run by corporates, or the time has come for outsourcing and completely going in for setting up shared services centers by engaging vendors and bringing in capabilities across the board? So is it in-house? Is it a vendor-based outsourcing? What is your vision?
So, having Mansi, Sapna, having lived both sides of the table. So I worked for IBM on the services side, was actively involved in growing that business for IBM, to switching sides and working with NatWest or RealPage. I've seen both sides, and I feel there is, unfortunately, there's no binary answer that, oh, okay, outsource partners versus global in-house centers. My take is there is going to be a convergence. What we're seeing today in the world is a couple of huge challenges, right? The first is the war for talent, or it's a perfect storm, right? You had the pandemic, you had this digital, fastening the digital transformation journey. And at the same time, everybody wanted the same set of skill sets. So we fundamentally had a shift in terms of everybody wanting the same skill. And then there is a musical chair happening of talent. If you look at it, the net growth might be 10-15%, but it's just that there was a tsunami hitting us at the same time, that now so it'll take some time before this war for talent or this perfect storm kind of settles down. And that's where you see this demand surging. Now, if I look at outsourced partners, they've been providing value since ages. There has been cost arbitrage, but to a large extent, now it is not about cost arbitrage, but it's about, in some sense, a lot of people are talking about zero arbitrage. You're going for talent, and that's where you're going to not just centers in India, but whether it is Philippines or South America or Eastern Europe, slightly has kind of stalled, but it's continuing to grow, specifically if you look at Poland or Romania and stuff. So my take is both will have their own pros and cons. Outsourced partners are definitely looking at engaging with these shared services centers and joining hands in terms of helping the large corporations set up themselves. GCCs are growing. If you look at Hyderabad itself, I think has grown phenomenally well. I think between Bangalore and Hyderabad, they've taken almost about 60, 65, 70% of the new GCCs being set up. My bigger worry is not about whether it is an outsourced partner versus a GCC. I think if we resolve the talent issue in terms of producing the graduates and making them as finished as they could be, then I think we'll see a huge growth, and that huge growth will have enough of the flesh for the outsourced partners, so as well for consulting companies or GCCs themselves. So I definitely see a convergence happening. The other point also is, Sapna, that I think there is GCCs fail because of sponsorship from the parent organization. And sometimes I see that the purpose of the GCC is not established right at the beginning. If the purpose is whether I want to build an R&D center, I want this to be an innovation hub, they have thrived. But some of them, when the purpose is not establishing that, I want to build an offshore center. And I think when the word offshore comes, I think we've kind of killed the GCC. So for me, it's that maturity of or the purpose of the GCC once established, then you have GCCs and the services industry surviving together and actually working together to deliver value to the parent organization.
Wow. Yeah, I think that definitely resonates. So the message is the purpose, the outcome, or the end goal should be very clear for a GCC that is being set up. And that would then toe the path for the success of the GCC, because then the mission, the vision is aligned to that purpose, right?
And if you look at it, Sapna, there's, when I came on board 3.5 years back, I was actually saying, what's the vision of the GCC? We don't have one. And that's when we said two things. One was, we want to be a great place to work, and not just somebody certifying us as great place to work, even though it's a good backing, but it's all about living. Everybody feels that this is a great place to work. In other words, profit center mindset. I think we need to come out of this cost center mindset and say that, how am I providing value? And that brings me to a point where, like, say, for example, if I'm looking at a account opening for a bank, it's taking some 7 days. It needs to be cut down to a few minutes or an hour. Now the cost of the transaction is $5. Can I bring it to $1? And for that, if I'm bringing it to $1, if the team is sitting here across global centers, I'm providing that $4 value. And if I look at the number of accounts opened, actually you are profitable in some sense. So that's why I insist that focus on domain, not just technology. Don't take work packet over the fence and say that, I'm catching that work packet and delivering it back. Look at what value you're providing, call a spade, question what's happening. And I've been very fortunate that the leadership team in RealPage, whether it is Dana or Vineet or the new leadership, has been exceptional in terms of, they hate the word offshore. We call ourselves as global centers. We are equal partners in establishing and growing the organization. And when that happens, you will see that everybody is happy in that ecosystem.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. So if I had to just summarize, basically moving away from that mindset of cost center and making GCCs basically part and parcel of the organization, like a small head office, like an organization which is that extended arm of the headquarters of the company, and literally, a corporate within a corporate. Absolutely. All right. So as I read more about you, I understand that you're also the strategic advisor for W Equity, working on promoting women in technology. You're a startup enthusiast, advise on blockchain startups, and you have also invested in a few tech startups. So that naturally leads me to my next question, which is your advice to startups, to the upcoming GCCs in terms of transformation, analytics, the coming in of bots, all of that. Yes.
So, so there are two parts. One is equity. I think we have a challenge. We have a challenge in diversity and inclusion is twofold. I think we've spoken about gender equality and women in technology and stuff. And that's why I love the work which Geeta is doing in this space. And when she asked me, I was actually very keen and hungry, saying that we need to do something, because I feel there are two things we need to do. One is women in technology and women in leadership. And if I was given a choice, I would run the entire organization with women in my team. I feel there is so much which we don't get, and there is a lack of talent as well, especially in leadership. To the second part on startups, my take is, and it got resonated when I was recently on my first module of Harvard. We had a great conversation with the MD of Matrix Partners, and he said something beautiful. Actually, he said, "It's not about the idea; it's about the experience of the entrepreneur." What we see today is ed tech guy starting a fintech guy starting a food tech. Now there is value. I'm not denying it, but ultimately it is that an entrepreneur who needs to continuously reinvent themselves, reinvent the model. So for me, whenever I'm looking at investment, I look at the entrepreneur. I'm rarely looked at yes, it needs to be a good space to be in, but it's predominantly driven by the entrepreneur. And it's not about technology, it's about also the domain where they're working. To your other question around startups and transformation and GCCs, I strongly believe that India is not just the land of unicorns now. I think there's so much more to offer, because India provides scale, which you don't get outside. The other good part about India is that we don't have legacy. We don't have complicated noodle architecture. We can build something and scale it up. I think what Aadhaar has done or GST has done, these have transformed the economy to a large extent. And that's what I feel, that the power of India, the power of the startup ecosystem, if you can bring it inside the GCCs, to look at innovation very differently and transformation very differently, and get these young talent to come and work within the GCCs and leave that mindset outside that, oh, I want ready resources, a full stack Java developer guy. Get a young guy from a startup, let him work, give them a product independently, and you see they'll do wonders. So for me, the merge and the convergence of startups and the acceleration around it within the GCCs is another opportunity which we should latch on.
So Sandeep, before I wrap up, one maybe cliche question, but so in any journey, there are failure points. There are areas we felt we could have done differently, better. Share something from your experience so that everybody can, pick a little bit of leaf from there. Are there any 3 things or anything that you felt in this journey that you've had so far, which is so extremely successful, what were the failure points? What is it that you felt you could have done a bit differently? Again, I'm sorry, my questions are a bit loaded, and you're really doing great justice by breaking them down and answering them so well. So my apologies for that.
No, that's fine, Sapna. I think it's all about sharing and learning, isn't it? Learning is every day I fall. Every day, twice I might, or thrice I might fall. Um, and coincidentally, when you start your Harvard module, you actually have the learning group, and in the learning group, they actually ask you to share your leadership journey. And I think there were three big interventions in my life, which kind of I was very BAU till I don't know if I was having that energy, that zeal. I didn't really realize my true potential. I think there was a intervention done in Talisman where I used to work, and that kind of changed my perception, the attitude towards life, because it kind of shook me up, saying that, what are you doing, man? And I think the first learning for me is to just stop, pause, and ask yourself, and listen to that feedback, because that's where I wrote it down. What got you here will not get you there. And on my desk, it's written in bold. So for me, that was the starting point. The second was in IBM. When you're an associate partner, to become a partner, there's a program called Cornerstone, where they look at what does a leader needs to have in terms of gravitas and stuff. But it was one beautiful thing, and there's a beautiful book called Leadership by Self-Deception, where it looks at issue under the issue. And I feel that typically we surface around it. It's like the iceberg. You don't see what's below the sea, but we see what's there on top. So for me, the second thing is we generally ignore the issue under the issue. And third one, which I need to work quite a lot, is that ability to, again, a beautiful book, Blink, but that ability to pause, listen, soak in, make the judgment, I feel is an evolving process for a leader. So those are my top three things which come to me.